How's it going, guys? Anfield here. Welcome back to a new video. So today's video we're going to be doing the T62a third mark finish session. Now I've already done a T62a third mark session. That was on NA and that was the very first one I uploaded to YouTube, but it was a stream highlight. It was before I started doing the actual replay commentary versions of the third marks. So I think these are more educational anyway, so that was one reason why I did it again. But the other reason is also because that was 2 years ago now that I made that, and the meta has changed significantly since I first 3-marked the T62a, so I wanted to do it again, and I think it's quite important to show sort of how things have changed. Now, on the topic of how things have changed and meta changes, it is important to note, and a warning to those of you that get really triggered about gold rounds, unfortunately, there is a lot of heat in this, and if that really upsets you, maybe you shouldn't watch. If you're that convinced that, you know, that removes anything you could learn from this, then feel free not to proceed. So you have been warned in that case. Obviously, we know there's been a lot of super heavy changes coming to the game, which means medium tanks have found it harder and harder to pen those sort of tanks with their standard ammunition. There's no weak points from the front, and as a result, you have to use heat or you can't pen. In fact, a lot of these tanks you can't even pen from the side without heat. So fair warning in that case, and it is quite an expensive one compared to the previous time I marked the tank, which was much cheaper. But nonetheless, we're going to run through this and hopefully you guys can enjoy it. You can see that the actual session itself was quite short, and that was because the final session only took a few games due to the fact that I was already quite high in the 90s, I think. I can't remember exactly, maybe 92 or 3% that I started on, so it didn't have that much to go. I tried to do it a few times on the stream and I just started getting frustrated because every time I got to 94 or something, I got set on fire, which is weird because the 62a usually isn't quite that vulnerable. But regardless, let's get into the actual session and I'll be able to actually walk you through it. So the first replay I have for you guys is on Airfield. It's not actually from the final 6 battles. Obviously I have a large selection of replays to choose from the previous stream sessions, so I decided to go with this one, mainly because it sort of shows the brawling the 62a is capable of in the right sort of terrain. Now this is not a map that I enjoy, like, at all, but it is something that I actually think was kind of a fun little battle in the end, which is surprising for this map. Now, as you can see, we're top tier mediums here. And there is a temptation for me to go over to the sort of middle section over at like G6, G5, but I'm going to go over here. Now, typically a lot of people will go up to the sniping ridge, which is fine. I'm not going to go there, one, because we have faster tanks such as this AMX-30 is going to take there, and I don't like there being too many mediums there in general. And also the other reason is that because this isn't a full tier 10 game, there's no reason for me not to be more aggressive than I might usually be, although I'm going to go for an initial shot here on the 140, which you can usually catch out a medium tank going up there anyway as they cross, because you get up to this little ridge line before they're fully, you know, over that little gap there. But yeah, ultimately when you're in this kind of matchmaker, you can play a little bit more aggressively in a tank like the 62a rather than play as a much more passive support role as you might in a full tier 10 game where there's lots of big tier 10 super heavies, you know, mouse, type 5 heavy, that sort of thing. That was well, both a nice shot and obviously a fortunate shot. The other reason that I can be in this sort of position is that you'll notice that there's no artillery. Now, fortunately, while the artillery changes haven't been like all positive in terms of, you know, artillery is still in this game, it does help that a lot of people don't play artillery as much as they used to. I think part of the reason is they don't get the sort of gratification of one-shotting someone or really decimating someone's tank from across the map anymore. They do more like chip damage, although that chip damage is still quite a lot of damage and it's very accurate damage, and obviously you get the stun as well. So pub battles have improved, although ranked battles are quite bad because, you know, people play artillery for easy XP. So I was trying to get that shot before the JP100 because if I could track his road wheel out, the JP100 shooting would have given me assisted as well. But that's okay. So now you can see I'm coming over here because the E5 is over here. Now, there's like differentials in the terrain where the IS-3 is, and that's where I eventually want to end up, although I'm not going to go there initially because I'm a little bit worried that I'll be flanked by the T26, but so far it's okay. So I can just sort of come out and take shots while these guys are a little distracted. Their JP100 is taking a lot of damage so far, which is not good. He's almost dead, but as for myself, I'm still full HP and I've done 1500 damage, so that's fine. So pretty soon I'll probably move into that little gap there as soon as I think that it's wise to do so. But right now, I can sort of trade with this E5. As he comes out, I'll take a quick shot at his hatch. Not always going to aim perfectly. I've switched to heat, obviously, because it's an E5 hatch. E5 hatches, despite being nerfed, are still very difficult to pen with standard ammunition. You need a good RNG roll to do it, which is another reason I think RNG on pen is silly, but that's another story. But so far, got a couple shots into his hatch, and he's been punished for poking. So it's all okay so far. So now you can see me move into this little dip, and you can see that it covers my entire tank hull, and only when I poke up will my turret be exposed, which is exactly what I want. Very difficult shot for anyone to actually retaliate on the 62A because the turret can't really be overmatched. You can pen the hatch, but it's very difficult to do so. So the 62A does this quite well, where it can just sort of sit in these little pockets, I guess, of terrain that you don't actually need depression for. But you can see there, it's 62A turret coming into good use there. Unfortunately, the E5 is able to pen me. That's where I check and to see that he's penned my hatch. It's not an easy shot, and it's usually not a purposeful shot, but it does happen. So yeah, at this point, our team is doing pretty well. JP100, despite being almost dead, was actually able to shoot the AMX just before the AMX killed him. For some reason, our T26 was like asking for help when he's like full HP, and allowed this other T26 to come around and shoot me. I was not happy, and he's asking me for help still. I'm like, what exactly do you want from me, dude? You can one-shot that dude. You're almost full HP. We're not that far from it, so I don't understand why he's so adamant that I come and help him. But regardless, I'm not gonna help him because there's no reason for me to do so. I don't want to get hit by the Scorpion. So yeah, gonna put some shots into this E4, swap back to APCR, no reason to have heat when you're shooting the backs or sides of tanks. One of the nice things about the Russian mediums is that you can switch back and forth relatively reliably in the space that you might, want to change your mind about what you're shooting. Whereas if you're in a big tank like an E100 with a long reload, if there's something you want to shoot AP with, but there's also something close by that heat might be necessary for, you don't want to swap. So I'm going to shoot the hatch of the 140 there. Unfortunately for me, that T30 turned and snapped, and I'm not going to lie, that is some nasty RNG. Not an easy shot. T30 is not a tank with a lot of stabilization. The bloom is quite large when it's turning its tank turret. So he was both moving and turning his turret, and yeah, quite lucky. But oh well, it's a lot of alpha damage to take, but it's okay. I'll move back up here though because the T30 might get distracted, so I have to be ready to do some damage. And you see here, he just shot, and he barely didn't back up enough there for me to shoot him. But the 140 is now dead, which actually really helps me. It means I can go on this T30 without worrying about being shot in the back. So that's why I'm moving up right now, is because it's safe to do so. Although this T30 again is very interested in me. Now you also notice that the T26 and the T69 have come up here now, which annoys me because I was like, well, we had like this T30 looking in two different directions, but now he only has to face one way. So this is why I'm relocating. I am slightly concerned about the Scorpion, but at the same time, I just figure, look, let's just blitz him and I can get into a safety before he can react quick enough. So there you go, full speed, and easily in enough time to get away from the Scorpion. So completely safe there to do that little maneuver, but you have to be quick. I mean, it is. I'm being called a moron by the T26, I think there, but I didn't see it in time. And this is all recorded, so I could click and go back, but that's okay. I record the replays and then I commentate over the replays while watching them on the actual video, not on the actual replay itself. So, but you also notice that I got quite a lot of assisted this game between mostly tracking, I think, but also a little bit of assisted via spotting there, which means that the assisted will be split between tracking and spotting, which probably take the track damage. You don't get both, you only get the higher one. So despite having 2,000 assisted, I'll actually only get, maybe like 1,200 or something, that whatever my tracking was probably at. So but that's okay, still a lot of assisted, which is nice, and it's a decent damage game, so it's still a relatively good result for me at this point, and something you might expect with this kind of matchmaking. So it was very good and allowed me to be very aggressive in this game. So before I get chatting about Cliff. I just want to say hello to Evil Monkey in the previous battle. I forgot that I was going to say that in the actual commentary of that replay, but at the time when I was streaming, I must not have seen him say hello to me, so hello to Evil Monkey in the Airfield battle in the Centurion. Anyway, Cliff is an interesting battle because ultimately it's quite a good medium map. There's a lot of flexibility, there's high ground control points and things like that, but Cliff can go horribly wrong because you need a lot of your teammates to do very specific things in order to actually control the map, and that's that you need control over the middle section and the donut area at like E3. Now if that doesn't happen, you can have a really bad time. The other problem with Cliff is when your teammates do something very annoying to me and a big personal frustration is when they go heavily on the 1-2 line, which is what you can kind of see my teammates doing here, is being far too eager on the 1-2 line. Now what they do is they sit down there the entire battle, trade occasional shots with the enemy team, and then they die to the enemy team that has control over the high ground. As Obi-Wan once said, I have the high ground. And it's true that ultimately the high ground is king in the game, and you have vision control, you have shot lanes, all kinds of things that the high ground provides you. So but you can see I'm going over here initially to do some damage. It's gonna be a tier 10/tier 9 game, so there are some guns that can punish me if I'm not very careful, which that was a little bit too over eager on my fault. I honestly didn't expect this kind of crossing, so I wasn't prepared for it, but there's no reason you shouldn't still be careful. I'm gonna try and hit his tracks there, but unfortunately I didn't get a track shot, which I don't really know how I didn't, but at that time I was able to get a track shot. It is actually something much more difficult for me to do on the NA server. This is EU, so I can usually hit the tracks pretty well. But I'm asking for a support fire on this E4, and I'm expecting my Skoda IS-7 T54 anything to shoot this guy, and they just do not seem very interested. So yeah, E4 gets away with his life almost at the end there, and the only reason he does die is because my WZ is in the donut. So yeah, it was a bit frustrating for me at that point. So you can see here this T54A1 is being very aggressive, and I'm thinking to myself, why would you go so aggressive? Because there's always tank destroyers back there. Whenever you're on the opposite side of this map and you're poking through this little hole here, there's always a big TD ready to punish you. And here he comes again, and I fluffed the shot because I'm so surprised that he's coming for it. The T54 as well is willing to take damage, and at this point I'm thinking, what the hell are they doing? I mean, it's almost like I'm on my account in NA. Now, on EU, I've padded Demo's account by all the times I've played it, even though he's been playing it as well. It's up to like 2,000 WNA, which isn't like extreme or anything, but certainly not super unicum. So yeah, I was pretty salty at that point, because obviously this was on stream, and I was always already pretty salty about losing mark percents to silly things like fires that I couldn't control. So yeah, but you can see there's a YOLO here going on, so it's immediately important that I try to protect my E75 and Skoda. This E5 is going to give me lots of easy shots. I'm using heat not because I needed it, because I have it loaded for the Conqueror's turret, and also I've used a lot of APCR in the beginning of this battle. As you can see, I've done a lot of damage, and we're only 3 minutes in. It's not like crazy damage, but it's quite a bit of damage, so I had to go through quite a lot of shots. It's quite a hard shot to hit this Conqueror though. But yeah, now this is the point where I become also very frustrated on the stream, is because this 1-2-1 we have has 1500 HP, and I'm looking at him and I say 1-2-1 YOLO the Conqueror, because there's no reason for him not to. He's full HP. I can come support him, but even still, like, the only threat he has is the Leopard, which, whether the Leopard would actually react in time, I don't know, but he needs to get rid of this Conqueror before our E75 dies, and potentially the Conqueror could kill me if he gets a nice shot. But I was able to do some damage to the Conqueror, so I'm softening him up some more. So each time I hit this Conqueror really for damage is less reason that this 1-2-1 needs to be so passive. So it is quite frustrating for me. Now you can see that we still have an E50 at A2, because that's the supportive position, I guess, and we have 2 Yag Tigers back there and a Type 4 Heavy. Now a lot of people think because they're in these big slow tanks they can't do anything, but that's really not the case. You should still try to climb up onto the high ground wherever possible. If you do it safely, you're fine. Now there was an E4 relocated back there, so now the 1-2-1 actually can't go and help this Conqueror. Or sorry, help go against this Conqueror, but before he definitely could, and if he was in the low ground at that point, the E4 would never have been able to hit him anyways. But yeah, this Conqueror is literally the only thing left, and we now have middle control, which means that this E4 has to turn around anyway. So yeah, I was gonna sit there for a while and help, but ultimately I decided this 1-to-1's not gonna move, so I'm not gonna sit there and wait for like an hour to try and like pen the hatch of this this Conqueror. So I'm moving over here now, just keeping an eye on the Leopard. It's basically the only thing that really worries me at this point is the Leopard. So, but he made a poke and got punished for it by our T110 E4, so that's okay. I'm gonna try and dig out this mouse and potential Foch and Waffle 4. So yeah, this guy can't poke anymore, so I'm not really too worried about him anymore. I'm just gonna look on these little ridge lines here and see once again if I can spot anything, which I do. See if I can get the shot on the Waffle. So here's a little bit of tunnel vision here. You can see that the Foch is actually quite shootable, and I don't notice it in time. So yeah, a little bit of poor situational awareness on my part there, because I really should have noticed that the Foch was shootable at that point. But I was looking for the Waffle shots, so it's okay. At this point, I mean, the team has already won, so whenever you get to this stage of the battle, it's all about how efficiently you can farm. Now, if you're going for assisted damage, you could do that as well. Usually, I try to do everything through damage, but, you know, I'm not going to deny assisted damage anyway, but just going to poke up here to see if I can spot again. I was able to spot the Waffle there, so you can see quite a lot of damage upon spotting there, which is nice. It's always nice to get these games where you do 4K plus and you get quite a lot of assisted as well, because ultimately the marks are very punishing. If you do a lot of 4K games, that's great, but then you have a 2K game and you've actually made negative progress. You need to have like these 6K plus combined games in order to balance those ones out. Which is part of the reason it's quite difficult sometimes to do it, especially on stream when you're not as focused. But able to punish this Foch regardless, and he couldn't see me there, which I thought was a little odd. I was expecting to get insta-lit, but so now I'm just going to look for this Waffle. If I can't see him, I'm going to go for the mouse, who is still down there, so I'm just going to dive off now. Almost. It's sometimes very difficult to make those shots, but regardless, mouse is going to go down any minute now. So yeah, ultimately this has been a pretty good battle, but we were quite fortunate. The enemy team was very poor. You know, the E4 made a cross that basically took his life away, and yeah, that's just impatience. I should have just hid behind the rock until I knew I was unlit, but yeah. Anyway, we were quite fortunate in a lot of respects, so, and we did have control over the donut thanks to our WZ, so we were able to successfully win. So next up is El Halluf, and I picked this one because it's actually another good example, just like the Airfield battle, of sort of the aggressive kind of playstyle you can actually sort of operate in 62A when the matchmaker is just right. In such a case like this, where there's tier 8s and 9s and 10s, it's much more, you know, efficient to actually be aggressive than it would be if there was a full tier 10 or maybe a mixture of tier 9s in the battle. So with this kind of spread, it's quite good. The other good thing about this battle is the matchmaker is good because there's a lot of hit points in there with the E100, you know, a little bit the IS-7, also the E75s, you know, where there could be much less hit points if there were other tanks as well. So the final thing that's good about this sort of thing that allows the aggression is that, again, there's no artillery in this battle, which is really, really nice. Like I said, in the pubs, or specifically on EU, there seems to be, you know, very, very few artillery players playing actively in pubs. That doesn't mean I didn't meet the artillery players. There certainly were those dotted about, but it's not nearly as bad as the ranked battles, so it's quite nice to play these kinds of battles. So the other thing about this replay is that I do fire a lot of heat. There's a lot of armored targets here, and so as a result, I'm just, you know, quite liberal with the rounds. So, you know, if that's going to bother you, maybe skip this replay if you're still watching at this point, despite the beginning of the video warning. But anyway, I'm just looking to engineer a little bit of gun depression to hit the RU-251 there, but wasn't able to really catch him, but, you know, I might make a mistake at some point, so like that, and I am able to actually pick off a nice shot onto the RU-251. It is quite critical that I weaken him. He's gonna keep us perma-lit there, so, but then I see that this 1390 on our team is like going ham, and I'm like, alright, dude. So I decide that I'm also gonna maybe help, but then I see the IS-7 poke over, and I'm thinking, shit. And then, the poor AMX, who should have been able to quite easily clip out the RU-251, instead rammed him and died. But our 57 moved up, and I was like, oh, okay. Keep trying to punish this IS-7, but he's just able to withdraw just fast enough so I wasn't quite able to do that. But I'm going to move down with these guys, and again, like I said, this is an aggression that's allowed for by the 62A because of the matchmaking. You know, if it was heavier tier matchmaking where there's artillery, this might be too dangerous. But I can punish these guys quite easily. Now, this is exactly the same as the airfield battle, which is the kind of terrain that you're looking for when you're playing the 62A and there's no artillery, that sort of thing, and you're not liable to be absolutely YOLO'd like you might be in a higher tier battle or whatever. So I just have to be careful, keep the situational awareness at a peak here, just so I don't get shot in the side. I have to keep an eye on both guns, both the E100s and the E75s, because they will look to shoot me in the side of the turret if I'm not careful enough. That was an unfortunate bounce actually on the E100, but I was able to get a little snap there. The nice thing about this E100 is that he has the you know, the mouse gun, the small caliber gun. So as a result, I'm able to trade more efficiently against him because he doesn't have heat to get through my turret so easily. But you see there's lots of super armored targets over here, so it's lots of hit points to farm. So I just need to be cautious how I do it, make sure that I'm careful and I pay attention to each and every gun that shoots me. So you can see that the E75 that's on the furthest reaches, the furthest reaches there is has 1820 hit points, which indicates to me that he's a stock E75. That means that he's not going to have the big gun, which is really critical information actually. It means that he's basically going to be one, easier to pen, but also two, less of a threat. Low alpha and less pen generally. So yeah, so you can see I'm using obviously lots of heat. There's lots of armored targets here. E100s. This tank is armored as fuck as well. So you basically, even to like pen this hatch here, it's not actually easily pennable by APCR all the time. So yeah, it's something that if you want to be reliable, just use the heat rounds, you know, such as Wargaming's current design of the game. So I was gonna go and try and shoot that other E75, but I was getting a little bit too high, and I didn't want this guy to actually shoot me. So, but you can see so far, I mean, he had to fire HE, but I've, you know, not actually blocked that much damage, but ultimately, I've basically been allowed to just farm these guys for free. That's the first bit of damage I took, and it was a bit of laziness at the end of the day, I guess, the reason I took that damage. The further out I get here, the more dangerous it becomes. As you can see, the terrain sort of levels out, so trying to be cautious. It's difficult because sometimes I get forced out further than I want to, because obviously my teammates are also trying to poke on these guys. And at this point, what I really need them to do is to start to be quite aggressive. There's no reason for them not to. Full HP E100 basically, T57, you know, there's no reason for them not to begin to be more aggressive on these guys over here that really should start. So now they're actually beginning the pushes, which ironically took a Skoda T50 to begin that push, but you know, whatever, gets it started, I guess. So at this point you always need to be careful because there's always dudes camping in the base, and you can see over there that they can shoot. So the 416 is camping back there, was actually able to shoot me. So you do have to be careful once you get to this point when you're pushing down over here. Generally it's better just to do a complete push down to the lower ground down there, but not always possible. So you can see that this stuff got lit, which is really super useful. So I'm just putting as much damage as I can. This stuff got lit by a T-34 too, which is what I was waiting for. He's in our south there. He was pushing up into their base. So I knew eventually they would get lit, so I didn't bother to move because I knew I'd have shots pretty soon. Also didn't really feel like going into the guns of a Jagdtiger and IS-7 on my own when my teammates weren't willing to do so with armor. So yeah. At this point, we'll need to be moving up soon, though. That little rock down there, that little, sort of like a next checkpoint, so to speak, it will be my next goal, and I can sort of decide where to go. So I'm going to go left here, and that's because going forward means going right into the IS-7's gun, whereas going this way, I can just basically flank the IS-7, easy peasy, no worries whatsoever. So this is the problem with the IS-7's position, which you should always be cautious of, is when you open up a second flank to yourself, which is kind of what I've done here, although I knew that that was a possibility and the IS-7 wasn't looking at me, so I knew I could double check with that stuff. But you see that Leopard got wrecked there, so that was really useful for me. Nothing else can shoot me really at the moment unless the AMX comes really far out, so I can just shoot this guy. So yeah, the AMX is coming out to shoot me. I go for the track shot there. Again, that's for a little bit of assisted damage, although I don't know why I bothered because I already have quite a lot of spotting assisted damage, so yeah, this guy's put 2 shots into me, so yeah, not so good, but that's okay. It's the end of the battle. He's the only tank left, so I wasn't that concerned about preserving my hit points at this point. So, but yeah, I used a lot of shells in this game, both all my heat and a lot of my APCR as well. So it was a pretty crazy game. over 7,000 damage, a little bit of assisted damage as well, so that's always nice going into these kinds of battles. So yeah, pretty clean game, but a good example of sort of the aggressive playstyle. So this is Murovka, which is kind of a good map for the 62A. Sometimes it can be quite difficult. Part of the problem with this map is that it's very dangerous to advance sometimes. You know, there's open areas where you can get caught out, and then the TDs can really like devastate you basically by camping in certain positions. So by that I mean, like, if you push the forest, like sometimes they have TDs back there waiting for you to punish you. You know, it does suck to dig out camping tank destroyers in these kinds of maps. Sometimes it can be difficult, so you do have to be very cautious how you move up in these kinds of maps, and when and where you poke, because if you're lit when you poke, oftentimes that's when it's very, very dangerous, and there's a tank destroyer like a Borsig or something, you know, or you know, 704 are also quite scary here. So either way, you don't want to take that kind of alpha hit, so you do have to be very careful. Now I'm going over here. I was going to do the spot, but this RU's going to do the spot, so which is fine. I'm still going to come over here so I can actually get some damage out. T49, able to get a shot on the T49 as he pokes up. So you can see here there's lots of tanks to shoot at as they're trying to cross over here. So the RU's pretty much lit this for me. I'm not really sure what I would be able to light on my own. I would be further up a little bit on the actual ridge line if I was lighting for myself, but it's nice to have 1200 damage basically already in the battle. It's a pretty good start, so that's a really, really, really poor shot on my part though, so rip. But regardless, it's still a good start to this battle. You know, you can see that we've got a pretty sizable force on this flank, you could say. We only have the E100, the T34, and the T28 over the 1-2 line, which means we're going to lose that flank. To be honest, those guys should already be ready to be ultra passive. The T28 should make it over to the B1 area, and the E100 and the T34 should, well, stick where the T34 currently is. But we do need to win this flank relatively quickly, because for some reason our JP100 is over here, which is very unusual for a JP100 to be in that sort of position. So yeah, we definitely need to control this flank quite quickly. So I'm thinking about moving over here to sort of force a hand and also rip 5100. Anyway, so yeah, I'm thinking about trying to force the game here. This is always a dangerous poke because they have people where the T34 and the defender are, and if you get lit doing this, you can get wrecked. So yeah, I lit that guy and I got 1000 assisted damage, which wasn't my intention for doing it, but you know, it's nice. And there you can see, you know, Borsig shooting me. Yay. Yay. But regardless, it's not so bad. I mean, I didn't get to shoot the T34 for whatever reason happened to that shot. I don't know. But this 5100 is in really, really poor position. So I'm going to kill him quite easily. I'm not really sure what he thought he was going to accomplish. You can see that they've already begun sort of being an E2 on the enemy team on the 1-2 line. So we don't have a great deal of time, but I do have to be cautious because if I move up too quickly and my team isn't ready to support me, I could be punished. Now, this T57 for some reason backed away from his cover. If he just sat back there, it would have basically shut down this entire flank and I wouldn't really be able to move for fear of getting wrecked. But then he just sort of sits there and I'm like, okay. Unfortunately, T57 turret is crazy strong. He did get one shot into me. I'm not sure if it hit my turret or my hull. My hull might have been exposed there, but you can see these guys have moved up for, again, some reason, I don't know. So we're just going to easily farm these guys. These guys needed to basically observe that they were going to win the 1-2 line, and they needed to be ultra passive and campy and defensive on this side, but they weren't. So, you know, our team is just basically able to sweep these guys up much quicker than we should have been able to. If they had been much more defensive, they would have really supported their team quite well by basically making us focus on this side for a long period of time, while our 1-2 line, their 1-2 line pushed. As it is right now, we've got a pretty good chance of winning this game because we're already quite a lot of tanks up, and we're gonna have a surround on this. This is like the sort of essence of map control here, where you win one flank and hope your other flank is still alive and collapse on that remaining flank. So this is basically what's going on right now. We still have a few tanks left on the 1-2 line to hold them frontally so they can't swing all the way around the A-B lines while we come in through the center and push them. So yeah, a pretty good battle actually in that sense that we were able to do that, but a little bit of fortune that the 57, 5100 and other things like that were just so aggressive when they really should have recognized that they were undergunned. Yeah, their team was a much more even split than ours. They were sort of even between the 1-2 and the 9-0, whereas ours was much more heavy on the 9-0. So should be able to catch this 50B as he tries to run away. full HP JP100. And when you're trying to mark a tank, seeing a tank in a late stage game that's like full HP, like that JP100, is like a really positive thing. It's a little unfortunate, but yeah, if you ever see a tank like that in this kind of stage of the game, when your team is won and you just need to push, yeah, that's really nice. This this Type 4 heavy, very, very desperate to try and hit me. But fortunately, I was able to avoid taking any massive HE damage from that guy. That wouldn't have been so good. But just have to be careful here because the 50B moved over a little bit. But I'm just using the hills as much as I can to protect myself and just only ever expose my turret if possible. The VK is still sitting up there waiting to try and shoot me. I'm going to see if I can engineer depression, which I can here. It's just basically what you have to do in the 62a. Sort of push yourself up against a hill on the side so you can point your tank down on the side there. Unfortunately for me, I didn't get to farm the JP100, which was upsetting. He sort of killed himself, but oh well. I still got a little bit of damage there at the end, so yeah, it was better to do things safely rather than like go ham and try and kill the JP100 while the 50B clipped me or something. You know, would have got much less doing that. So. It was a shame though I didn't get to shoot him. So I'm choosing to go after the Centurion and the 50B because, you know, we'll see. There's more tanks down here. Or sorry, I'm choosing not to go after the Centurion. I'm going after the 50B and the RD because there's more tanks down here. And I'm much more likely to get to these tanks than I am the Centurion. For obvious reasons. So I realize at this point that even if I don't get both shots on the 53, 55, I'll still get the spotting for the last bit of damage. So isn't really a negative for me going after him at this point. And there he is. So I shot him once and yeah, he dies. So a little bit of extra spotting damage on top of the 1000 I got from earlier. So this is Stalingrad, which is a map that a lot of people seem to say that they hate, which I don't really understand because I actually think it's quite a good map. I don't know, I just really enjoy playing Stalingrad, I guess. I think that there's lots of little flanking alleys, which is nice. I think that there's something for every sort of class to do, short of maybe light tanks, although the tier 10 light tanks are more than capable of playing as flanker mediums anyway. So I quite like it, but whatever. As it is, the 9-0 line at the beach area is sort of considered to be the medium-ish area, but oftentimes when the sort of balance is quite even, I like to actually support the heavies, and the reason for that is there's lots of opportunities to do a lot of damage to these heavy tanks while they're trying to deal with my heavies. So you play in that complete support role, which I think works quite well on this map. And also I think that generally the team where the heavy tank flank wins is the team that wins on this map, unless you cap fast. But short of a cap fast, I generally think if there's a medium force that's left and a heavy tank force that's left, the heavy tank force usually comes out on top because medium tank players generally don't perform well against the heavy tank players in these sort of confined spaces. The same thing sort of seems to happen on Pilsen as well. If they don't cap, the mediums push in against the heavies and the heavies still left in the buildings usually win. So in this case I like to support the heavy tanks in this kind of map, I guess. But regardless, I was looking for a little shot there, but there was no cross, so I'm going to move over to the next little building set here. And there's a nice little gap in the rubble that really works for the 62a because obviously you're a really solid turret, so it's quite difficult to actually receive any damage in this kind of position. So you can see here these distracted heavy tanks are just going to feed into me basically as I punish them for their pokes. So I'm not really that concerned about who I'm shooting at this point. You know, this is a full tier 10 game, so there's lots of hit points, so there's lots of damage available for me as long as I'm careful. The last thing I'd want to do is basically sacrifice all of my HP quite early on, because that means it's much more difficult to farm the game. But managed to track that IS-7 despite having heat loaded, which is a little weird. I'm going to keep the heat though because of this little mouse. I actually think that wasn't a purposeful block. Originally I was willing to give credit for the mouse for trying to save the IS-7, but then I realized he was just making a cross and it wasn't actually an attempt to save his own IS-7. So the poor IS-7 was sat there like perma-tracked. Felt a little bit sorry for him, to be honest with you. I thought the mouse was going to try and at least help him, but nope. But he backed up just enough to track him, but the way the mouse armor is built, like, you actually can't properly pen that stuff, so yeah, mouse is an amazing tank. But this 140, a little bit of an overexposure there, so I'm willing to have that. I mean, as you can see so far, I haven't actually needed a move because, again, I'm playing the support role. I'm not dealing with these guys directly like my allies are closer to the 2 line. I'm just generally being a pain for this mouse. But you can see here, basically, if I want to pen this guy on the side, I'm going to have to use heat, which is, you know, good game design. So, well, now he's a much more extreme angle, but the lower front plate is exposed. Unfortunately, I hit his track, so... At this point, I'm willing to take a bet that he's either going to miss or not pen me, which of course you saw there he missed. So I went for the track there because I knew that he would turn his turret back towards me and I would be able to get extra damage on his turret. So that was what I was able to do there. This 57 is the next thing to expose himself. So, you know, I'm more than happy to shoot that. You know, at this point, just digging through as much as I can. Our team is doing pretty well. We've won the 1-2, or sorry, well, we were almost winning the 1-2, and we've also basically won the 9-0, so lots of things going our way, so to speak. I didn't actually realize at first that this guy had actually turned himself completely around. Yeah, I don't know, kind of weird to back into that like that and look at me, but regardless, we're going to win, so... I'm turning around now because the 140 is quite low but could run away and I would have to chase him and he might die. I knew the 57 was going to die quite quickly and the other Batshot over there is probably going to die as well. So I'm deciding I'm going to go after this Batshot because obviously everything is super cleanup mode now. Now you can see I'm quite healthy. I got 1500 hit points. But what you're about to see is a severe run of bad luck. And I think our mouse thinks that I'm like a super bad player at some point. By what he says, but you're about to see it in a minute because I'm looking for this Batshot and I think that maybe he ran over here instead of running into a brick wall on the 1-2 line. I wasn't entirely wrong, he was just very delayed in coming back. But you can see 497, I've got 1500 hit points, so I should easily be able to win this in any normal situation. But you know, RNG is RNG, so there's a bounce. So obviously now the Batshot can clip me. So I ram him to make sure that the next shot does kill him. 320 is my average roll. And I hit him for 314, so he's able to clip me out. So there you go, RNG. So then the mouse says 62a. Wow, you know, he probably thinks that I'm like the worst player ever because, you know, normally you'd win that. But yeah, so I low rolled him and I bounced him. So, you know, RNG is RNG, I guess, at the end of the day. I had no choice but to ram him after the first bounce. I wouldn't have even bothered if I'd penned the first round. But yeah, a little bit of unfortunate turn of events there, but I guess this replay in general is just to show that, you know, you can play a different way. You don't have to dedicatedly go to the flank that your tank is supposedly good at or your tank class is good at. So in this case I went to like the sort of city building block area because I knew that I could play that support role quite effectively on this map. But a lot of you seem to hate this map. I don't know, I think it's fine. I think there are way worse maps, but yeah, pretty decent battle anyway. So this is Paris, which obviously is a pretty awful map, let's be honest. Specifically if you're in a medium tank, it's a terrible medium tank map. And I think this is the second to last battle I played before I actually marked the tank. And I thought it was really typical that I would get Paris right before, or right when the mark was quite high. So yeah, I was a little bit upset. And obviously there's 2 artillery, so that doesn't help. It's not like awful matchmaking in the sense that, you know, there's like full tier 10 and there's lots of big alpha heavy tank guns and stuff that basically I would be throwing myself against a wall if I tried to break through because there's no real flanking option in this map like there is in Stalingrad. So yeah, I was not too pleased. The field isn't very good, so you kind of have to play around the south area, but yeah, it's not very good. Regardless, I'm going to go for their initial spot here, which sometimes I do. It can be quite risky. But I feel like there is a worth to it if you're a little bit careful and you don't get snapped. So you get it like an initial spot on some of these guys, so it can pay off in terms of like assisted damage and things like that, giving your team a little bit of an advantage. As you can see there, the prototype got punished quite badly. I was able to pen the T54 just once, but at least it's something. Fortunately for me, an E50 on our team is sort of like YOLO'd across, so we actually get some extra spots that I didn't anticipate. The E50 is doing okay. He's not dead or anything, so, you know. At this point, I'll gladly accept some potential extra damage here at the beginning of the game. So I'm just looking to see who I can pen. Getting a little bit unlucky, I guess, on some of these shots, like the T10 there. Probably should have been a penetrating shot, but unfortunately it wasn't. So now I'm going to flex over back towards the south progressively because, you know, I do need to be over in that general area. it is important that I do that, so I'm going to move over there and hopefully be able to affect the battle somehow. I have to be incredibly careful though, because one bad poke and I could be destroyed very quickly. The only thing that I've noticed that is giving me a little bit of hope is that the 183 was spotted in the north, which means that he's generally going to be probably camping over at the D8 area, where there's like that little ridge line that tank destroyers like to sit. So and there's also a high chance that the waffle isn't here, the waffle 4, so I'm a little bit confident in the sense that there's going to be no massive guns over here. So I'm going to see if I can find any shots and just sort of try and support where I can. I mean, there's lots of tier 8s, so that'll at least help the danger factor, I suppose, in the fact of maybe not getting punished by a huge alpha gun. So I'm just going to look for any damage I can get if the C44 makes an extension or overextension. He did certainly for a T124, but not for me, so unfortunate, but that's okay. So at this point, it's a patience game because it can be quite tempting to sort of YOLO, but I have to be careful where I move up to at any given stage. So at this point, the defender has moved up and the E5 is locked behind that building, so I know that I can be here and be safe from the E5. Taking that shot does suck, but you know, reusable kits are quite nice. Are able to heal that guy right back. And I get rid of that guy. So I'm moving over here now to avoid the T10's gun, using this guy as a shield, and I can punish this E5. Usually you can't be this aggressive on this side. Usually there's just far too many tanks. I tracked that guy because I knew he was going to go around the corner after our defender, and I would no longer have shots on him unless I exposed to the T10. So it was important that I tracked that guy so that he didn't get away quick enough. So yeah, now I can look at the defender. So you can sort of see how this is broken down a little bit. You progressively move to each bit and make sure that you can't be shot from two different sides. So got rid of the T. I was expecting him to shoot me there, but I don't know whether he was just delayed or if he'd shot recently, or I don't know. So you can see there that was unfortunate that I didn't kill that guy with that shot, and you'll sort of see why that kind of sucks later on. That wasn't a kill shot, but that's okay. So we're moving up here, and this is where it gets a little bit more dangerous because of the fact that the 183 is lingering in the area. So that's always something that concerns me. So you can see at this point, rather than going forward, I'm going around this way because it kind of looked like the 183 could be ready to push around that corner at any time. So I'm just taking a look for this guy, and obviously the artillery is like, yo, I'm still a thing in 2017 for some reason. So I'm like, okay. It didn't do that much damage to me because he missed, and obviously the bat already has quite low alpha, but it still sucks to be stunned for that time, I guess. But fortunately, I don't have an immediate opponent to worry about. So now I'm sort of inching up here. This is risky because obviously the 183 could just come around this corner, but there is a chance that I could outplay the 183 if I get an immediate track on his road wheel coming around the corner. So I want to get rid of this T54, so I was willing to take the risk. And you never know, the 183 could come behind me, so I don't really want to live in fear all the time. Fortunately though, I have this Leopard PTA that's going over there, and he spots the 183, so I'm like, okay, I know where he is now. The waffle is also spotted, so that's also really good information. I'm gonna see if I can get a side shot on this 183, but he's like just too fast for me. It's like he knew. That kind of sucks, but that's okay. So I just need to keep an eye on him while I try to shoot the waffle. So one shot there. I was gonna load HE to shoot him, but then I remembered that, you know, if I have HE loaded and the 183 comes back, like he was sort of tempted to do there by the looks of it, I don't want to have HE loaded for the 183. So yeah, this guy's moving down here now, and the 183 is a little distracted, so I'm gonna try and get rid of this guy as soon as possible. That was damage that I think I could have avoided if I'd have been a bit more cautious, but the 183 is more distracted now than ever, so I'm going to think about moving here, because if I can get rid of this guy, it'd be really good. I was fortunate not to take damage there, and I guess he was also fortunate not to take damage there, so a little bit of a trade of RNG there. I tried to hit the AMX-30 on the crossing. So the reason I'm going after the waffle here, not the 183, is that the waffle might turn around and shoot me in the back while I'm still trying to get through the 183, who still has a nice chunk of HP, and I knew that our M4 wasn't going to survive much longer. So it's always better to get rid of a gun faster like that rather than go after the one, you know, with the 1100 hit points that'll take 3 or 4 shots to get rid of. Especially because obviously the waffle has a lot of Alpha. Now I'm looking for this 183 here, and I'm sort of playing on this little sloped hill there because I can back up immediately and make myself a very difficult target to hit. So that was sort of just a quick snap because I don't want to stop and aim while this 183 could come behind me. So I'm going to look for immediately for this Lorraine artillery, who I do find. I knew he would be over here, so it wasn't like much of a question about where he would be. But hey, that's a no damage shot on an artillery piece, because why not? This is usually the part where they like wreck you because for some reason they're not dead already. So right now I'm just gonna check over here for the 183. I don't know where he is or if he's gonna come after me, which is what I fully expect him to do at this point, is to actually come after me. But I haven't seen him yet, so I'm not really sure. Ideally, I don't want to be on this grass plain though. I want to put as much distance between me and the 183 as possible, which means that he has to come much closer to me to come after me, and also I have much more time for maneuverability, and his accuracy will be greater affected if I'm further away. So this plane is much better, that's why I went for it. But now I'm going to cross over here just to see if I can get a quick spot. There's obviously, you can see how much cover there is. No 183 yet, so I'm going to try and get the kill shot over here, which is secured. So that's 8 kills, Radley Walters. So you can see now why the shot in the T44 kind of sucks, because it would have been a Pool's medal. I will clean up this 183, so you can see sort of just being very cautious here. It is difficult sometimes to shoot him completely safely because your hull armor does sometimes stick out on these kind of hills. But he had AP loaded anyway, and he shot my turret and it bounced, so. And there's the kill shot. So yeah, that's pretty much that. There was one battle after this that was on Fjords that was a good battle, but not like outstanding or anything, where I actually did end up marking the tank. That was actually a 6-kill battle as well, so I went from Radley Walters to a Top Gun as well. So yeah, 9 kills and then 6 kills, pretty good. But regardless, this was a pretty solid battle, and I thought it was interesting because usually you don't get Paris maps like this, but just to sort of explain and show how you can move up in the beginning there and why I was able to successfully do it like that, I thought was kind of interesting to take a look at. So regardless, that's that, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope that some of these replays might have been helpful to you in some way. I had a lot of replays, and if I could, I would do all of them because, you know, I think there was something to learn from even the worst of the replays where I made mistakes. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video, guys. Thanks so much for watching. Leave a comment below, and if you liked the video, give it a thumbs up and all that good jazz, because it does take quite a lot of effort to make these videos, and those likes help. So yeah, thanks so much for watching, guys, and I'll catch you next time.